What's up, and welcome back to the Setting the Edge podcast. I'm your host, Ronnie Vaughn. As always, you can find me on Twitter at VaughnR16. And I got my co-host with me, the man, the myth, the legend, Ryan Zamichelli, coming off another hot week of college football, winnings, and gambling, and all sorts of good stuff. So how are we doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm ready to get into big week 5 we got ahead of us.
Absolutely, man. A lot to love this week. Right from the get-go, I was looking left and right, and I was loving a lot of different peaks, different games to take a look at. I have a pretty decent read on everything for the most part. Now heading into week 5. So how is your record thus far? Let's go through that.
My record on the year for college football is I'm 12-4, and placing each bet, if it was for 1 unit, for 1.1 units, technically for 1 unit to win, plus 7.6 units on the year. Last week went 3-0.
There you go, another solid week. I'm sitting. Last week I went 3-2. Each week has been either 2-3 or 3-2 for me. I usually try to aim for 5 games. I also do 1 unit for each one, unless I say otherwise. ECU was the one I tweeted out early in hopes that everyone would check out the website to see everything else. You would have rode with me on Tennessee -5, Colorado +10. I was big on Colorado with the outright win there. Michigan State -3.5. Nah, it wasn't looking good right from the start on that one. I could just feel it with Wisco. And then Florida State -4. I thought was taking candy from a baby. The over on that game was done in 3 seconds too. I totally whiffed on that. Your picks: Temple -27. As a Temple guy, you knew homecoming game against a really bad FBS school. Money in the Bank. UCF -7. Florida International is a terrible team. They're in shambles right now, so that was Money in the Bank too. And then you were also got on Florida State. You got it at -4.5. Whatever, same thing. Pretty much solid all the way through. But let's kick off week 5 here. We have 2 games on Thursday. I believe we're both targeting them. Specifically, I'll start with Connecticut is on the road at Houston. Houston's number 6, as we all know, 4-0. And they got our boy Greg Ward Jr. Leading the squad. Might I remind you all last year that during this matchup between UConn and Houston, when UConn had upset them at home back up in Rentschler Field, Greg Ward was injured for that game, which played a huge role in that. Greg Ward is 100% healthy in this game. The spread in this right now, I see Houston -29.5 with the over-under here at 50. As a UConn guy, I know how they like to play. They like to slow down the game as much as they can with, that's Bob Diaco's defensive mentality there. And Houston, the unders have gone a little bit more under at their home field. And I don't think Houston's really going to pull away from UConn in this one. It's going to be a conference match. It's going to be a grinded out game, defensively played. Greg Ward will probably still have 3 touchdowns, but I think the score is going to end up being like 28 to 15 or so. I don't think UConn might cover. That's not what my bet is here, but I like the under 50. I think the total is going to keep going up. I saw it at 49 earlier. I'm going with the under in this game. It's going to be gross, just the way Bob Diaco wants it, but Houston will end up winning this game. Do you have any thoughts on this?
No, I don't really have too much insight in this game. I'm just looking at this game and telling Houston not to mess up their season like they did last year, and I'm pretty confident that they've got this one on the money line, the outright win as the line. I'm seeing 29 right now, especially with Greg Ward. That was their main hiccup last year, was not having Greg Ward.
Yep.
I don't have any read on the line either way, but definitely every week I like to put together one real big college football parlay with just a bunch of money lines of teams that I like. And I think I'm going to throw Houston in that one this week.
Yeah, they're pretty much a solid bet to win. If it was if UConn was home team in this game, it's a little bit scarier. But moving on to the next game, I believe you have a play in this game. 1-2 Kansas on the road at Texas Tech. My boy Patrick Mahomes, gunslinger over at Texas Tech, one of our favorite players last year in daily fantasy sports. What do you have for me on this game?
This game, I'm looking at 28.5 for Texas Tech and an over-under of 80, and I don't think that that's nearly enough for Texas Tech. I think they're going to cover 28.5 fairly easily. This is one of my leans for the week. I'll have most of my picks finalized either tomorrow night or Friday morning. But as of right now, Texas Tech is one of the ones that's definitely right in my crosshairs for what I'm looking to bet this week. The over-under of 80, looking at that, that's like a 54-26 game. Yeah, about there.
Yep, just about.
So I just don't think that Kansas can put up 26 points. They're still awful. They were blessed with one of the worst FCS teams early in the season to give them a nice little gimme win, and they blew them out of the water. And that had everybody – if you just looked at Kansas and looked at their scores like week 2 of the season, you said, okay, they might be an actual football team this year. And then you look into it, and they played not just an FCS opponent, one of the worst FCS opponents, and then they come out and get blown out of the water by Ohio, and then they got blown out of the water by Memphis, and Texas Tech is going to run up the score. I don't see Kansas being able to score, and 28.5 just isn't enough. I wish it was 28, so it would give you that 4-touchdown push. If you're able to buy a half a point, I definitely would do that, but I love 28.5 still.
Yeah, we know Texas Tech can score in a hurry, and by any means is Kansas a team that's ever shown any promise in the Big 12. If I had gun to the head, I'm leaning Texas Tech in this game, but high spreads tend to scare me, but there shouldn't be a problem with that game, in my opinion. Let's move on over to Friday. 2 games I'm looking at here that I might be picking, but I love me some Washington this year. We have number 7 Stanford at number 10 Washington. Spread right now I see now is Washington minus 3.5 with the over/under at 44. Spoiler alert, I have Washington to win the Pac-12 North plus 200, so I like them a lot this year. They're one of my favorite teams to look at this year. I think they're very solid all the way around. But they're bringing in Christian McCaffrey and the Stanford Cardinal. If I'm leaning anywhere in this game, I like Washington minus 3.5. I wasn't too worried about their scare last week. It was a sandwich game. They're looking ahead here to Stanford, bringing them in. I'm just worried if Washington's going to have enough offense to keep up if Stanford and Christian McCaffrey are just running all over the place. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, like I've said it before in a couple of the previous podcasts, every year there's a couple of games where, like with a big top 10 matchup like this, there are a couple of games where you look at it and you go, all right, that's one where I have an edge. Like Oklahoma against Ohio State, you could look at that one and say, Ohio State's just going to come out and throttle them. This is one of the games, on the contrary, where I think it's one of the games that's going to answer a lot of questions, and we don't have enough answers going into it. Is Washington going to be able to lock up Christian McCaffrey? Is Jake Browning Washington quarterback? Is he legit? Is Stanford legit? Is their win against UCLA like a legitimate like resume building win? And then is Washington legit? As they are one of the biggest unknowns heading into the season. Coming into the season, we each, on the first episode of the podcast, we each picked our conference winners. And in this conference, I took Stanford. So if I'm doing any type of pick 'em here, I'd probably pick Stanford just because they've been my Pac-12 pick all season. But looking at the spread, I don't really like anything about it. Don't like the over-under. Don't like the spread either direction, especially at 3.5 with Stanford not getting, like say it comes down to a field goal as time expires, then Stanford or Washington doesn't get the win. Yeah, I'm just going to be a really big fan of this game, not going to be betting it.
Yeah, if I'm leaning right now Washington minus 3.5. If they're going to prove that themselves this year, it's this game. This is pretty much their quote unquote Super Bowl. You guys, I like to use that term. But if you look ahead in their schedule, the only other ranked matchup they have is at Utah, and that's in 3 weeks. They play Oregon at Oregon, but Oregon and Colorado. Oregon has lost to Colorado last week. Colorado's a good program, but Oregon is just not as good. And you look at the rest of the schedule. Cal might be a decently tough game. Then they have USC too, but this is the only other really marquee matchup they have until Utah. So I think Washington is all in on this game. Stanford's always kind of looking ahead. They usually have a tougher schedule. They got Notre Dame coming up after they play Washington State. So it gives a little bit of time for them. But give me some Washington action here. I'm leaning that direction. I'm also – the other game that's being played might not catch your attention, but if you're a late-night football watcher like we are, we have one of our MAC darlings, big-time MAC darlings. We have Toledo 3-0 on the road at BYU. I love me some Toledo. I don't know about you. It's BYU minus 3.5 right now. I think Toledo is a very solid team, and BYU is very overrated this year. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, everything you said makes complete sense. I've been a little skeptical of Toledo after losing their big D1 like Power 5 conference transfer from last year. Mm-hmm. But I mean, 3.5. It's a good looking line for an early game because typically teams don't like. I have it somewhere in one of my spreadsheets of a million numbers that like the way teams play on a certain amount of rest, and typically a favorite performs much closer to the underdog. Like they just perform worse in a game on short rest, giving the underdog the advantage. So plus 3.5 definitely looks good. I'm not going to be betting it. I don't really have an edge, but I'm definitely everything you said makes a lot of sense there.
Yeah, and if you're looking at BYU's record this year, they've lost each game by under 3, and they're just getting worn down, I think. And I think Toledo's going to be attacking them from all cylinders. I am a huge fan of their running back, Kareem Hunt. He was one of our boys last year, but he hasn't quite broke out yet all the way around, but he hasn't quite needed to. The only real opponent Toledo has had this year is Fresno. Fresno's not the greatest program, so they're looking at this game before they hop right back into the action. Which cannot wait until we got some Tuesday and Wednesday night football on. But I'm leaning me some Toledo Rockets here on the road. Late game, I think so plus 3.5 at BYU. Give me some of that action. What game would you like to touch upon next? That is on your list of targets.
My next one is moving into the full Saturday slate of games. Penn State against Minnesota. I really like Penn State -3 in this one. My reason being for this, I was able to watch Penn State in person up in Happy Valley in their game against Temple. As I noted last week on the podcast when I was going into why I liked Temple at -27, getting Jihad back last week. Penn State's offense looked really good in that game against Temple. They looked really good in their game against Pittsburgh. And then they ran into just an absolute powerhouse that's firing on all cylinders, taking no prisoners and just destroying everybody in their path in Michigan. And now they're only 3-point favorites at home against Minnesota. I think that's just too juicy of a line for me to overlook with the talent that they have. They got Saquon Barkley. They have Chris Godwin, I believe his name is one of the most targeted receivers in college football. Trace McSorley isn't exactly the best quarterback in the world, but he's exactly the style of quarterback that James Franklin needs to win this year, to win as many games as he can this year. Personally, on a little side note, if James Franklin still has a job at Penn State at the end of this year, I'm going to be astounded. But in this game specifically, I really, really like Penn State -3.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Penn State -3.5 is one of my leans. I don't know why everyone is all aboard the Minnesota train. They're I don't think that's that good of a team. They beat Colorado State last week. That's not really a big win. They were home for Oregon State. That's a decent win, but are we really going to freak out over a 3-0 Minnesota team coming on the road into Happy Valley against a team that nearly lost to Pittsburgh in a shootout over in Heinz Field, 42-39? Then had solid wins over Kent and Temple. Obviously they're going to walk into a buzzsaw with Michigan. It's just really not fair playing them in the big house right now. But the Nittany Lions aren't really looking forward at all yet. They have Maryland next week. That's not something to be too worried about. Before they bring in Ohio State the following week, which is a big game. But I like Penn State's spot right here. Saquon Barkley, as we mentioned, is one of the most elusive backs in all of college football, and I expect them to ground and pound the ball out. They probably won't blow them out, but I think they win by at least a score here. Let's move on to another one of the games I'm looking at here. I'm looking at Texas at Oklahoma State, and I see Oklahoma State here at -2.5. I like Oklahoma State a lot coming into this season, and I wasn't as high on as I was with Texas, but that heartbreaking loss against Central Michigan earlier this year made a lot of people turn their head away from them, and then they lose, at Baylor. They're 8-point dogs. They lost by about 9 or so. At Baylor's a tough environment. You don't want to play in Wacky Waco. But I think Oklahoma State's in a good spot here. Vegas obviously likes them at -2.5, and I'm not ready to say Texas is for real yet, especially losing at Cal in a complete shootout, in which a game I thought they should have put away a long time ago. They're in a sandwich spot here, and I love to pick those games. They have Oklahoma coming up next home, and I think Oklahoma State catches them off guard here and wins by about 4 points, 3 points. It's going to be a close game. -2.5 here. I'm biting. What do you like?
Oh, yeah, looking at this game, I'm right there with you. I like Oklahoma State as the favorite in this game. Maybe not enough to bet on it right now, as I haven't really looked into all the stats with this one.
Right.
But one of the big things with the Texas Longhorns this year is that they've in week one, them playing Notre Dame, it was all about that like big element of surprise. And they came out and they were a completely different football team on offense than they were last year with the 18-wheeler package with Shane Buechele slinging it around for God knows how many yards in that game, putting up 50 points. And then it just so happens 3 weeks later, we look back and we say, all right, Duke just put up 38 on Notre Dame. That's not really any big deal in the grand scheme of things. And then UTEP, throw that game out the window. It's just not a good football team. And then Cal, going to Cal, when they don't have that big element of surprise that they had in week one, they lose 50-43. They let up a lot of points when they play a decent offense. Here they're getting
they left like 35 points a game. That's nothing to brag about. It's like 107th in the country.
Yeah. This game, it looks like they're coming off of bye as they didn't play Cal last week. So when I'm just thinking about this matchup, it's like Oklahoma State has played against the teams that Texas is emulating this year. Texas's offense is built off of that Baylor offense, as they have the former Baylor offensive coordinator in there as their offensive coordinator, and Oklahoma State just played Baylor. So I said it for Ohio State against Oklahoma. Anything Houston did, Ohio State would do better. Anything Texas did, Baylor did way better. And they played them to an 11-point game in Waco. Now they got Texas at home. I think they're just going to be ready for this game. They're pissed off that they lost a BS game against Central Michigan. They won a shootout against Pitt. They lost a game that it's a tough game to win at Baylor. Now I like them -2.5 as well.
Yep. A player to keep an eye out for here, James Washington, receiver, Oklahoma State, 25 catches, 488 yards, 3 touchdowns. He's moving up the he was preseason ranked number 41, I think, in all-around players, and he's making a lot of noise, and he's someone to look out for moving towards the draft, in my opinion. What other game here are you targeting? I know you probably have about like 3 or 4 more, correct?
Yeah, I got 3 more games that I'm specifically targeting. My next lean, as none of these are like my official picks yet, I'm looking at Western Michigan against Central Michigan. My preseason group of 5 darling that I did, aside from Houston, of course, was Western Michigan, because if you looked at last year and like the Western Kentucky darling team that they had just firepower on offense. They had Brendan Dowdy at quarterback with Taylor at wide receiver, Anthony Wales at running back, and Tyler Higbee at tight end. They just had a plethora of options and talent on offense. And now I see Western Michigan -3.5 at Central Michigan. And Western Michigan's really that group of 5 team that just has a plethora of talent on offense with Corey Davis, Jamari Bogan, and Zach Terrell on offense. And I think this line at -3.5 is giving Central Michigan some respect that they do deserve for keeping that Oklahoma State game close. But then whenever there's a nationally televised game where a non-powerhouse team plays really well or plays better than expected, they always get like favored by Vegas throughout the rest of the season, as you could see with like Appalachian State against Miami. They're probably giving them 2.5, maybe 3 points that they don't really deserve in this matchup. So here I'm going to look to pick at those 2.5, 3 points and take Western Michigan -3.5 in Central Michigan. It's not a long road for them. It's only west to Central Michigan, staying within the state. And I think they'll come out of this one with the win.
Yeah, I'm with you here, too. It's another one of my leans. I really like what I've seen from the Western Michigan offense this year, and specifically Jamari Bogan, 89 carries, 527 yards, 5 touchdowns here. And the quarterback, Zach Terrell, has looked a lot better than he has in the past, and that was a key part of their offense last year, losing their number 1 receiver, Braverman, I believe he was, correct?
Daniel Braverman.
He was something else for them last year. They have Western Michigan is 2, I would say 1 real solid win at Northwestern game, and then he stomped on Illinois, proving that they're not a phony by any means. And this is a little bit of a rivalry game for them. So I think they come in here. I think they're being a little disrespected with that line, even though it is on the road. I think they win by about 10 points in this game, to be honest with you. It's another one of my leans, but we will post all of our picks on the website, of course, and we'll tweet them out as well. I got another game here. I believe you're on the same page with me here. You got Oklahoma -3.5 at TCU. Preach to the chorus here again about why you like Oklahoma here.
Why I'm liking Oklahoma is we said in our preseason podcast, with a lot of the things that we said on the preseason podcast, I'm sticking to my guns on a lot of them. And we said TCU was an overrated team. And to me, watching them in every game since then, they've kind of proved that they're an overrated team. They haven't – their final score might be convincing in their game against SMU last week, but the performance throughout the first half at least wasn't very convincing. They turned it on a bit in the second half and were able to pull away from a team starting still a backup quarterback in Hicks for SMU. But they lost their game against Arkansas 3 times, or they lost that game. They ended up losing that game, actually.
Yeah, they won it 3 times and then they lost it.
Yeah, so they're just not as good of a team as they've been ranked up to be. And Oklahoma not being in the top 25 is just a product of their playing probably one of the toughest schedules and playing 2 top 10 teams, 2 top 6 teams, actually. Yep. And they're set up for a big redemption win, as they still have the Big 12 in the palm of their hands, as they haven't lost a conference game yet. So people who say Oklahoma's season's done is just simply not true. They're still playing for that conference title, which I still think Baylor's going to pull out. Like I said, preseason, fingers crossed on that one. But Oklahoma minus 3.5, whatever you can get them at. Anything up to, I'd say 4.5 or 5, I would pull the trigger.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Oklahoma's played literally probably the hardest schedule in all of college football. They had a bye week after coming off the Ohio State loss. They're on the road here. It's 5 o'clock game, prime time on Fox. Love me some Sooners here. Sooners have to make a statement, or else your season is over. I think you lose to TCU, you're probably going to lose to Baylor. I think their season's over if they lose this game. Are they done or finished if they lose, though?
For Oklahoma?
Yeah.
Maybe not in the scope of the Big 12, because I think the Big 12's a really even conference with everybody just knocking each other off. But national conversation, they're defeated. They're not going to make a big-time bowl and not going to make a big-time impact.
Right. What's the next game you have on your list of plays? I think you have one more from me here.
Yeah, I have one more, and then I'm going to give an FCS little sleeper.
Oh, Jesus.
Middle Tennessee State at minus 15.5 against North Texas is my last pick for the football bowl subdivision. Looking at this game, I'm going to give a little quick recap, because I feel like I've talked for a while on the recent picks. Middle Tennessee State came out with a late win last week against Louisiana Tech. Probably didn't win by as much as they should have, didn't cover their spread. And North Texas is arguably the worst team in college football. In the middle of Texas, you would think they'd be able to snag 1 or 2 sleeper recruits, but they just flat out can't do that. They have minimal talent on that team. 15.5, I'm thinking this game ends up being like a 30-7 game for that's a 23-point win. I don't have any confidence in North Texas, even at home, being able to cover this line. So I'm going to line up Middle Tennessee State as one of my big picks for this week.
Yeah, they're one of the more pathetic teams in the league. They're not throwing over 200 yards a game. They're letting up like 35 points a game against, Rice and like Cook and SMU, with teams that are despicable. Mm-hmm. Florida didn't even need to do anything to them. They got up by 28 and then they just went to sleep. Definitely don't hate that pick there whatsoever. And Middle Tennessee State, as we know, can put up points in a hurry, as they have shown in all their games, scoring over 38 points in each one. 55, 47, 41, 38, all the way down. I'm going to give out a couple more leans. I'm not going to get too deep into them that I'm looking at here. I like Utah plus 1.5 at Cal. I think it's overreaction Saturday here, just because California beat Texas. Coming back late in that game doesn't give them any merit to be favored by 1.5 here against a Utah team that just totally outclasses them on all fronts of the game, except maybe the passing game. But Utah's going to look to establish the run and control the clock there on the road. I like Utah plus 1.5 here as outright winners. Another one of my favorite West Coast teams here. I got San Diego State, number 19, minus 19.5 at South Alabama. I don't think much else needs to be said. San Diego State is one of the best, other 5 power conference schools. South Alabama is not a good football program. Give me 3 touchdowns on the road. Another marquee matchup that I really shouldn't bite on this game, but I might have to do it again. But betting against Lamar Jackson has been painful to me. After betting on him the first 2, I bet on him the other time. And, I don't want to be on the wrong side of that. But Louisville, number 3 at Clemson. Clemson is +2 here. Am I ready to kiss Clemson seasons goodbye? As we said, we've stuck to our guns. But Lamar Jackson is the right-handed Michael Vick here. I don't know if I'll be biting on Clemson +2. But if I'm a firm believer in them finishing their season and getting to the playoff, here's the game. Maybe give me some Clemson +2. Last game I'm looking at here, Utah State at number 24, Boise State. Boise State puts up points in a hurry. They're a top 25 team once again. Love the blue turf. 3 touchdowns at home. Give me them. Love it. That's another one of my leans. I will probably be finalizing between 3 to 5 picks, and then stay tuned on our Twitter accounts in case we decide to play some, get a little late night steam going if we're having a hot day, or for I'm sitting here at 2 and 3 again, looking to just break even because I hate betting an even number of games, but betting an odd number of games and just being 1 out from 500 leaves you some room to rub. Note, if you really want to do it, there's a Hawaii game at 12 o'clock. So, we might be taking a peek at that, but we shall see. Ryan, do you have any closing remarks or anything that you want our viewers and listeners to stick in their back pocket going into this weekend?
Yeah, my little FCS nugget. I feel like a big main point about Vegas is the more people that are going to watch a game, the better the line is going to be. Because just naturally with Vegas, like NFL lines are so much sharper than a college football line because so many more people place bets on the NFL line, so they want to make more money. So they put their best people on the on the NFL games. Then the next tier is on the college football games. And then for FCS, there's a lot of value to be had. Like I just was sniffing around some FCS games last week and saw a couple lines. I was like, okay, they just played LSU and Jacksonville State. I was like, they just played LSU. They played them relatively tough for an FCS team, and now they're favored by like 9.5, and they went out and whooped up on the team that they were playing. And now I looked through this week, and I saw North Dakota State. They have their homecoming this week, and they've done nothing but whoop up on major programs throughout the FCS, and then Iowa in the FBS. And they're coming off a bye, and it's their homecoming. 14.5 just isn't enough to me, regardless of the opponent. They're playing a pretty decent FCS opponent in Illinois State, but they got him at home for homecoming. And in my opinion, this is going to be an absolute obliteration. The starting quarterback for North Dakota State came in for Carson Wentz last year when Wentz was injured, and he's never lost a game. He's just a flat-out winner, and I think that they're going to cover that line pretty easily. If you're able to bet on FCS games, I would definitely take a peek at that one. And then to just talk a little bit on the Clemson-Louisville game, one of my buddies was texting me about how he wants to bet Louisville spread this week, and I was trying to talk him off the cliff for so long. And yeah, he was just buying into the Lamar Miller hype train so much, and
Jackson,
it kind of hurts me. Yeah, my bad, Lamar Jackson. And he was just buying into that hype train so much, and I was just rattling off reasons why I personally wouldn't bet on Louisville. And yeah, they whooped up on Florida State. At the end of the game, they like that spread, the final score is probably like 15 points higher than like it naturally was, as Florida State was a defeated team and Louisville was just catching balls between their knees, returning punts and everything. And Florida State was out there without their 2 top defenders in that game. Florida State starting a freshman quarterback, and it was at home. This time you're playing at Clemson. Deshaun Jackson has never been, quote unquote, like whooped up on by any team. And they just have a stout defense that's only allowed like one of the best points per game totals in the entire country. I believe it's like between 10 to 15. I think it's around 12.
11.
So for anybody out there like wanting to bet Louisville, if you think you can find this like distinct edge over Vegas betting Louisville, then find me on Twitter and let me know what you're seeing, because like I just can't find something that is really like tangible other than the fact that Lamar Miller has ran up the score on some pretty bad football teams and then had a great game against Florida State. I'm not taking it away. I'm not saying that that's not a good win, but it was a game where Florida State wasn't Florida State. So for that reason, I'm not looking to bet for Louisville, as I tried to talk my friend off the cliff. unsuccessful doing that one. He was already locked and loaded when he had let me know what he was thinking. But hey, nothing I can do about that one.
Yeah, it's just, oof, I don't know. Am I ready to like write off Clemson? I don't think I am. And you're getting them at dogs here. Would you take the money line just like straight up? I wouldn't even take the spread. I would just take money line because Clemson will win the game.
Yeah.
That's how it's it. I would just take a money line there. One more side note. Hey, this is something to put in your back pocket. Coach O, you remember Coach O from USC, the interim head coach, knows how to get his guys real hype and win a game for no reason just because of his antics. I don't know if you guys are believers in those kind of themes and stories. Coach O, fired the offensive coordinator there over at LSU, walked his way to work, and he had everyone in the locker room touch a rope. He said, "Guys, we're all going to pull together." I just want to leave that. LSU is home at night, 13. They're getting 13 here, minus 13, and they have Missouri coming in. I'm not saying, but I'm saying. And I'll leave you guys with that one. All right, thanks for tuning in. Make sure you guys follow us on Twitter. The podcast is at settingtheedge_. I am Vaughn R16, and he is with an A, Great Zambino. We'll be giving out some opinions during the game on Saturday, giving out our picks as well. And make sure you check out our website, settingtheedge.weebly.com. We'll have our picks posted there, our SoundCloud audio and YouTube link as well for all our other videos. We will be recording an NFL podcast on Thursday rather. So make sure you guys tune into that too. But best of luck from us here at Setting the Edge and all your college gambling endeavors. Tweet out your picks to us, and we'll give out some advice if we have any thoughts on that game. Ryan, any closing thoughts?
Nope, we've got everything. Just have a good weekend of betting college football, and ready to record NFL tomorrow.
Absolutely. All right, man. Have a good night.
You too.